as my noble friend Lord Bates might like me to do so. I want to devote the rest of my remarks to a little notice change first launched in the 2016 budget, but whose impact is now being felt. My Lords, this concerns the 2019 loan charge, which is part of the attack on tax avoidance. Now, this came to my attention during the Finance Bill Subcommittee of the Economic Affairs Committee, which is very ably chaired by my noble friend Lord Forsyth of Drumlene. This year we're looking at making tax digital for VAT and at HMRC powers, and we issued a call for evidence on that basis. And our reports on both of these aspects will be available shortly, for those of you I know cannot wait. What the subcommittee did not expect was to get a deluge of evidence from individuals and their advisors about the impact of the 2019 loan charge. Now, this loan charge is expected to produce over £2.5 billion of tax revenue, with the largest part in this year and next. It is thus not an insignificant part of the fiscal arithmetic which underpins this budget. The legislation is in the Finance No. 2 Bill of 2017. It's highly technical, and I will not weary noble lords with the details. But in summary, some taxpayers worked as contractors rather than employees and received income in the form of loans which were not taxed. The legislation treats these loans as income received on the 5th of April next year. And because it goes back as far as 1999, as much as 20 years' worth of income could be taxed in one go. Now, when the provisions were debated in the other place in committee, there were approximately 2 Hansard columns of general commentary by the Financial Secretary and his opposite number on the theme of tax avoidance. The actual legislation was not scrutinised in detail, and the impact on the individuals affected was not explored. And the upshot was that the provisions found their way into law with ease. I will just remark, as I have done before in your Lordship's House, that the expertise of this House as a revising chamber could be put to extremely good use if we were allowed to cover finance bills. But that aside, what is now becoming very apparent is the profound impact on individuals caught by these provisions. Now, none of us has much sympathy with tax avoidance schemes. We probably feel little sympathy for all those famous names who are now facing big bills from film schemes or other exotic schemes which don't actually work to shelter large amounts of income from taxation. But, my lords, the loan charge is not like that. It deals with ordinary people earning ordinary levels of income. At the lower end, there are people on the minimum wage. For example, low-wage employees made redundant and immediately re-employed via agencies who put them into companies which operated these schemes. There are some who earned higher amounts, for example, IT contractors who choose to work under contract rather than as employees. But the people caught up are not the ultra-rich. Now, they all entered into schemes which were cleverly marketed and which appeared to have HMRC approval, which of course they did not. These schemes are not illegal, as the Financial Secretary has often said, they just do not work for tax purposes. It is easy, with the benefit of hindsight, to say that if something looks too good to be true, it probably is. But the tax returns were often not challenged by HMRC at the time, which led many to believe that they were in the clear. A demand for tax on 20 years of income has come as a massive and unsustainable shock to many. My lords, I have no doubt that many people were foolish. What is very clear from the cases that I've seen, however, is that the individuals concerned have spent the money on living expenses. They would find it difficult to pay 1 year's worth of tax, let alone 20 years' worth. Faced with HMRC's demands, many now face losing their homes. Some will opt for bankruptcy. The government knew this when the legislation was enacted, because the impact statement chillingly stated, the government anticipate that some of these individuals will become insolvent as a result. My Lords, that is now coming to pass. It has been reported that some people are suicidal and that personal relationships have often been destroyed. The financial demands appear overwhelming. HMRC do have some arrangements in place for deferred payment, but this will often not mitigate the extraordinary impact of the debts now being created. My Lords, I hope that there is a beating heart somewhere in the Treasury that will understand the personal misery and havoc that this legislation is creating. It is clear that the individuals have obtained an unwarranted tax and national insurance advantage. It is the cure worse than the disease. I know that my noble friend the Minister has a strong sense of right and wrong, and my only request to him is to go back to the Treasury after this debate and to judge for himself whether what is being done is fair.
Could I begin by echoing the words in reference to the loan charge that came from Baroness Noakes? I'm also on the Finance Subcommittee of the Economic Affairs Committee. This House will know that in the other place, my colleague Stephen Lloyd, the MP for Eastbourne, has put down an early day motion on this issue. 100 MPs have signed it across all parties, reflecting the experience of their constituents. These are really ordinary people doing things like cleaning hospitals, social workers, nurses, who found themselves moved out of their normal employment and did not have the scope and understanding to realise that they were being put into tax-fragile arrangements when they were moved over to working as contract workers. And I would very much ask the Minister if he would take this back, because the public pronouncements that have been made, both by the Chancellor and the Financial Secretary, seem to suggest that they do not understand that this is the kind of person affected, rather than a handful of glamorous celebrities or footballers. And I think it really is absolutely crucial that that is drawn to their attention. Look, my Lords, that is the first of the wind-up speeches. It's clear that